Okay, this is clip 6. In clip 6 and 7, we are going to look at section D, which is the last section on this exam paper, the decision-making exercise, people and environmental issues, and probably, I think, the one you're going to find most challenging. As in, there's several reasons for that, but in terms of timing, I think you need a good 30 minutes, and that would include planning, thinking, as well as writing your response and reading through. And if you think logically, the whole exam paper has been building up to this, which is why I strongly recommend you do this in order. I would never start with section D first, okay? I would always do it in section A, B, C and D. The issue is really what we started with, okay, and that is how the Indonesian government is going to manage the oil palm industry. Now, by this point, you should know quite a bit about Indonesia. You should know quite a bit about the oil palm industry. You should know quite a bit about rainforest and the impacts that it's having. And the decision-making exercise is going to make you kind of put all that together. And the first sort of thing that we need to think about are these three options, okay? You have to choose one of these three options. Now, the first thing I'm going to stress is that there is no right or wrong answer here. That's not what they're marking. Each one of those options is a perfectly acceptable one to think about, okay? What I would make sure that I do is be clear about which one I'm picking. Don't try and invent your own option or do what I call a pick and mix. I'll have a bit of that one, bit of that one, bit of that one, because, well, you just can't. Just don't do it. Just go for one of the options, okay? The whole thing is about managing the oil palm industry. By the side of each option, before I even thought about them, what I would do is perhaps read through, and then at the side or where I've got a little bit of space, I would jot down positives and negatives of each of these options, because none of them are going to be perfect and they're all going to have drawbacks and they're all going to have positives. I'd also try and think about, while I'm going through these options, I'd also try and think about long-term and short-term, and the idea of how things are going to vary over space and time. And I'd also think about different viewpoints. Some people are obviously going to benefit, some people won't. There are different groups of people. I'd also try and think socially, economically, environmentally, and as an extension, how Indonesia and this issue connects with the rest of the world, okay? Because taiga and rainforest do connect with the rest of the world. Generally speaking, the three options will follow a pattern. There will be one that, just like option 3 here says, encourage further production of palm oil. That's your kind of business as usual approach, isn't it? Carry on doing what we're doing. There is the opposite extreme, which is, just go towards sustainability, stop palm oil production completely, regrow the rainforest, restore the wildlife. And there's one that's kind of in the middle, okay? Now, personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I do think that the one in the middle gives you a little bit more to write about. That there's nothing wrong in justifying that one, there's nothing wrong in justifying that one, but I do hold the opinion that the middle ground gives you a lot more to be able to write about. Okay? As I've sort of hinted to, consider different points of view. So, as a quick sort of thinking activity, before I make my mind up, I'd just be jotting down a few ideas. This one here, stop oil production completely. Well, it's going to have economic implications because wealth is going to go down. However, the environment is going to benefit. The indigenous people would benefit. Spelt that wrong. But the, economic growth within Indonesia, it is actually going to slow down. This is going to affect GDP. The country is probably in debt. It needs to develop. Okay? When I think about this one here, well, just carry on producing palm oil. It's going to mean a rise in exports, a rise in GDP. That's going to lead to more wealth, increased standard of living. Is it necessarily going to be for everybody, though? It might be that the tribal people don't benefit from this, and there are going to be clear environmental issues. The other thing I could think about straight away with this option is that it's just not sustainable. that the palm oil will eventually destroy its own environment and therefore no longer be able to be produced. So I think it's good practice just to sort of go through each option and at the side just very quickly jot down what comes into your head. Good points and bad points. Okay? The actual question is here. Select which option the Indonesian government should choose that would be best for its people and its environment. Justify your choice. Okay? That is what you've actually got to do. Now, we've not come across this one before, justify, and I think it's the only place that you will come across this as a command word. What does it mean? Well, justify, let's say I've picked option 1. Justify means I've got to be able to explain why I've picked option 1, but I've also got to say at some point why I haven't picked option 2 and option 3. Okay? The difference in this last section is also, well, how is it marked? It's marked for everything. And it's 12 marks. There are also 4 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar, if you've not spotted that already. So that gives you a total of 16 marks. This is the most writing you will have to do on this paper. I think you need a good 5 minutes for planning and thinking, because if you don't, it will just turn into a random jumble of sentences. And that gives you about 20 minutes in terms of writing, perhaps 25, and a little bit of time to read through. But let's just very quickly go back for marking. How is it marked? It's marked for knowledge, it's marked for understanding, it's marked for application, and it's marked for skills. Okay? And each of those carries kind of equal weighting. It's also got 4 marks for SPAG, so think about what we've said in the past. You can all get 2 out of 4 just by writing in proper sentences with full stops and capital letters. And there is absolutely no excuse for that. The more paragraphing and geographical vocabulary and connectives and more mature terminology and language and vocabulary you can get into these paragraphs, the more it's going to get into a 3 or a 4. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. Okay, but I think the understanding of this clip is, do you understand what you've actually got to do, and have you actually thought about what you've got to do? Okay, we'll stop there.